So this is Shannon Hennig. I wanted to share a little bit of my thoughts about thinking about behavior from an absolute viewpoint versus a relative viewpoint. And I come from the point of view of social communication and social language thinking because my background's in speech language therapy. But behavior and communication are so intrinsically linked, and the more you can't use words and linguistic methods, the more behavior might come out. So I could imagine a school might come up with, or a family, or anywhere might come up with a kind of a sense in their head of the degree of severity and intensity that a child, student, or adult might demonstrate. So maybe you have 0, which is just really calm and mellow. And here you might have engaged, but still very polite and calm. And then maybe at level 2, you start seeing a little bit more, maybe just a little bit more of an edge in their voice. Maybe they're giving a little bit of a tone, maybe some sarcasm, and colorful, but maybe not too colorful. Then we might get to full out rude. You might get some more swearing, more just insistent, like my way or the highway kind of statements. And then you might get up to here where maybe we're adding in some shoving and some pushing, maybe even something awful like spitting. And then 5, you might get full-blown hitting, throwing things, I don't know, punching walls, all different things. And when I first started, I had all of these situations where we'd have no tolerance, and you'd have to be at a 2 or a 0, even if we didn't have words for this. But basically, we had a set of behaviors that were allowed, and anything above that was not allowed. And then I realized there's 2 things that are tricky about that. First is my reality versus their reality. So my reality, if I think this is just a really calm thing and I'm just asking you to do some math worksheets, I'm not going to tolerate anything up here. But if your reality is you're completely in a full threat mode, someone's not kept a promise, the world's going to end, everything I've been looking forward to is going to be taken away from me, and it's quite dire, they're going to be up here in a space I might be in if I saw someone taking, my favorite niece or nephew away in a police car at the age of 3. I might get up to this space. So I have to remember, if I think this is a really calm, controlled space, and they're in a complete panic because they think the world's coming to an end, or they're really freaked out or scared, I have to keep that in mind. The second thing I realize is sort of learning in the moment. So if I'm using relative thinking about this, then there's space for choice. And if I'm over here, it's a little bit all or nothing. So let me give you a little example of that. So let's imagine that there's a student going through their day. Here's time, trucking along. And they're doing something during their day, and it's a pretty mellow activity. Their body would be probably saying that they should be choosing between a 0, 1, or 2. And I would be happy as a teacher or as a therapist with any of these. If somebody threw a 5 behavior or a 4 behavior in here, that would get some consequences. That would not be okay. But let's say something really stressful happened. Your paper got eaten in the computer, corrupted. You were almost done with a Minecraft creation and it all died or whatever. Your body might be saying, oh no, this is a 4, 3, or 2 level event. It's getting quite dire. And you start thinking of this, but you choose 3 and you pull yourself in. There might not be any chance to be down here. That might be beyond you because it's such an awful situation. It's the end of the world. It's quite stressful. So I think that is a really positive thing if I can see you within here. But if I'm using an absolute thing, I'm like, oh no, they're showing these rude, swearing, insistent behaviors, and I might be quite harsh on them, and I might have missed this actually really lovely, not where we want at the end of in 10 years, but for the moment, a really lovely choice that they held it together and they chose something better. And what happens if something even worse happens? There was a bullying incident, they thought their teacher said something mean, it wasn't mean, but they took the word the wrong way, and everything in their body now is saying, high alert, I should do, this is a big threat. If their bodies is doing this and they actually choose a 3 here, well, that's massive. That to me is way more impressive than staying at a 0, 1, or 2 in a calm state. If they came down here and I saw them do a 4, well, I'd be unimpressed with that. But I still might be quite impressed with a 2 or a 3, given that that might be what their body's saying. And if they were down here and I saw 3 or 4 level behaviors when they're quite capable of staying in this zone for their reality, not my reality, their reality, well then that would be a different thing. So if I'm using an absolute way of doing it, a 3 would always be bad. And I have no way of encouraging and giving space and rewarding doing the better thing. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't be kept safe. I'm not saying that there's situations where 3 is ever appropriate. There are times where that might be really inappropriate. But I have to leave space for growth. And this is the growth, is when they can choose something a little bit better. And I've seen students, maybe here, they're saying, you know, F you, and then they pause and they switch to like, go away, in a pretty nasty tone of voice. And if I'm in this absolute framework, I'm still quite upset. And if I'm in the relative framework, I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive that they did that. And I'll respect and acknowledge that. And then later, I'll either teach things about the reality so they realize this isn't as dire as they might think it is, or I'll teach them alternative ways so that in this space, even when it's quite stressed, they have a little bit more range of social communication behaviors than they did before. So it's just a little bit of my thinking. I don't know if that's helpful to you or not, but just wanted to share.